Behind every great franchise system is a founder that maybe never thought about franchising, but wanted to change his life or her life. And as they franchise, the business itself turns out to have so much more meaning than dollars and cents. About mission, about faith, and about changing lives. And today we're going to talk to Bryan Park at Footprints Floors. Hey, Bryan. We had our planning call this morning and get to have this conversation this afternoon, but thanks for spending some time.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah, I get to talk to you twice in one day. That's a pretty good day.
Bryan, it's our subscribers, franchisors, smart business owners, they're thinking about franchising their business and brokers. And a lot of times these conversations really help get behind the brand and the journey, everything you guys have been through. But just to set the stage here, if you could just brief description of Footprints Floors.
So we are a flooring company, but I think we're a little unique, especially on the franchising side. We're definitely unique if you come from a flooring perspective, but we're unique in that we don't have brick and mortar. This is not a showroom model. So we're contractors. We make our money doing the work. So the short of it is we do residential remodel. We're just in people's houses doing projects, and we can provide material, but that's not necessarily our bread and butter. We really want to be the experts, and we are the experts entering people's homes, taking care of customers. There's such a need out there for contractors that show up and do what they say they're going to do. There's a giant hole in the overall flooring industry, and we really see Footprints as the company that comes in and fills that hole. And that's what we've seen. We're now in 41 states, 170 locations. We've seen great success because there's such a need, and we're good at filling that need.
So home-based business, lower startup cost. I mean, how many territories and locations are you servicing right now, Bryan?
We're 165 to 170 locations across the country. We have about 1,200 people involved in the business.
Bryan, the stories I love to hear when like we uncover a brand, right? I get to work with you. I get to work with your team. You guys are very mission driven, very values driven organization. We were talking this morning about franchise advisory councils. Your process is very thoughtful when you're considering next steps with franchisees, but you weren't always a franchisor. You didn't always know everything you know about franchising. I mean, how did this all come about? What was the journey from having a business to becoming a franchisor and growing one of the most recognized systems out there?
At the core, I'm just a floor guy pretending to know what the heck I'm doing every day. It's how I still feel, and in some ways that keeps me humble, and I rightfully so. I think it starts really with my passion of my love of God, which then leads to my love of my neighbor, which is what we're called to do. It's love thy neighbor, and which really in my view is to put the needs of others first. And that's when I started the company. That's, I think, why I grew. I was a contractor just doing floors with my own two hands. And I really came to it with the mindset of putting the needs of my customers above my own, self-sacrificing to make sure that I'm improving their lives, and really oftentimes at the detriment of myself. And so taking that mentality and now applying that to employees as they brought them in, how could I help them, and how can I help them improve their lives in both making more money, enjoying their jobs, having more free time. And if I have that mindset, then I have employees that love what they do. And then that leads to a system of bringing in franchisees and approaching our relationship with them the exact same way. I never want to create a relationship where I'm policing our franchisees. I want them to love what they're doing. I want them to love every day, and be making good money and be home and present with their families. And if I have that be the mindset, everything else takes care of itself. And so that's been from day one to 20 years later. It's their needs above our own, and the results are there.
A lot of people don't realize it. So you did distinguish, right? You're not providing the product for customers. How does that work in terms of the business model itself? Like, what are the primary services franchisees are selling? Without getting into numbers, what do the unit economics of the business look like? What's a good way to understand them?
maybe just to take you through the life cycle of a customer relationship with us. So our franchisees spend money on marketing, and we at the corporate level, franchisor, have 15 years of history behind us, and we give them lots and lots of advice on where to go and how to do it. We build out their dashboards and pictures and copy, and everything's provided to them. And we simply attach their credit card, because a lot of these are kind of pay as you go, pay monthly, pay per lead, pay, Google SEO. We help them manage it, but we use their money. So then that money goes out, calls start coming in. They actually filter through our corporate staff. We call it our managed services staff, which is comprised of customer service representatives and customer service managers that take leads and convert them into estimates and put them on the franchisee's schedule. Or if they have a sales staff, we're putting them on their salespeople's schedules. That's really when the franchisee takes over. They go do the job, or they go visit with that customer. We do hour-long estimates generally. So we walk through the project. What's your hopes and dreams? Okay, let me measure. This is how much it's going to cost. They say, great, let's move forward. We get a deposit. We then assign a crew to that project. That crew goes and executes the project. Our franchisee all the while is visiting that job site each day of the project, making sure everybody's feeling okay and things are going well. We collect the final check at the end once they're satisfied, ask for a 5-star review, put the check in the bank, and then repeat that as many times as humanly possible without going crazy. So unit metrics or economics that we care about are number of estimates that they're doing, what's their conversion rate on estimates with selling. So we're looking at revenue per estimate, generally looking at like $1,000 per estimate. So they go do 10 estimates, they book $10,000. And then gross margins, we're shooting for around 50% gross margins. If they hit all those metrics, they're walking away with somewhere in the 25 to 30% net profit range.
And Bryan, how'd you get involved in the industry? I mean, like, how'd that come about?
I grew up in South Denver. I went to the Air Force Academy for college, served in the Air Force, served out my time, and then was just trying to figure out what to do in life. I was a history major, which means I don't necessarily have a job waiting for me because I got to go figure out. So I was going back to school to be a civil engineer and needed a day job. I'd gotten married. We're starting to have a family. We got 3 puppies as part of this starting the family thing, and our puppies ate our carpet. We'd gone out to dinner, came home, and the carpet was destroyed. And so we hired a flooring company to come in to replace that carpet. And I was watching that guy install the floors and was like, this is kind of cool. How much money do you make? And he's like, I don't know, 120 grand. Like, that's way more than I thought. And could I go to school at night and install floors by day? And he said, oh, yeah, you control your own schedule. So then I called up that flooring company and said, hey, you're doing my house right now. Can I come work for you? And he said, that's weird, but sure. So I became the customer turned crew for this flooring company in Denver. I was with them for the next 3 years. Had moved up from doing the installs myself, install, sand, and finish. So I was like a site finished wood guy, and moved into sales, moved into kind of general management level. And then 2008 hit, and I broke off and started Footprints Floors.
The decision to franchise, what was that like? Like, what were you thinking about, and what were the big motivators there?
It was pretty much 100% avoiding workers' comp. That's why we started franchising. So
Right. Okay.
workers' comp, I don't know if people are familiar with it, is outrageously expensive for contractors. You take what you pay a contractor and there's a multiplier. And so it ends up being hundreds of thousands of dollars. So 2012-ish, we had grown to a place from 2008 to 2012 where we're the largest installer in Denver by then. And it was pretty much just me doing sales, running 12 or 15 crews by myself, and I was working way too many hours. So I needed to somehow split up the workload, and I came up with this brilliant idea to, I don't know if I'm on camera, but this means not to divide up the city and really cut down my drive time. So I approached one of my crews and said, hey, how about you take all the estimates that come in north of Hamden in Denver, north of this road, and I'll take all the south stuff. I'll do all your marketing for you. I'll answer your phones. You go do the estimate, execute the job, collect the check from the customer, send me back a percentage, and that'll be our relationship, and we'll avoid workers' comp. And he said, great. And so we ran with it. It went very well. And then we went to file taxes at the end of the year, and our accountant's like, great year, but it's kind of illegal what you're doing. You got to either make him a W-2 employee or it kind of looks like you're running a franchise. Have you thought about doing that? And that was the first time I'd really ever even heard that word. So I started investigating franchising. What's this all about? And I found a lawyer on the internet that will make boilerplate franchise documents for you for $2,500. So I hired this guy. I never met him. I don't know if I think I talked to him on the phone one time, and he made a 25-page FDD / agreement for me for $2,500. I'm not sure I even read it, because looking back at it a couple years later, it was talking about window cleaning and
Oh, okay.
had the wrong company's name in there a couple times. But it checked the box as far as the relationship went with the guy on the north side of town with me. And we entered franchising. I then filled out the rest of kind of Denver, the Front Range, over the next couple years with really friends that I knew that wanted to get into this. So we filled out Denver. It went very well. We didn't really get serious at, like, I really considered that like, hey, it's me and my buddies hanging out doing flooring company stuff together, and we're loosely termed a franchise. We didn't really get serious about it until about 2018. So 6 years later. And mostly that was because that Swiss cheese horrible agreement that I had in place was making me really nervous, because there was some real money floating around, and that can cause drama if you don't have good legal documents in place. So I decided to bite the bullet and spend a couple $100,000 developing a real deal agreement. And in that process, that lawyer steered me towards what it is to go out of state and franchise development companies. I learned about brokers for the first time. I thought I was going to have to travel around, do trade shows myself, but then there's these brokers that exist. We love you guys. We love brokers. That means I don't have to travel to Arkansas. And we went out of state finally in 2019, and we went from the 5 originals, including myself, to 85 over the next few years.
So for the franchisors out there, or individuals looking to franchise their business, footprints, I mean, you made a strategic decision at a certain point to work with Raintree, which is a franchise sales organization.
Yep.
And I know you guys have a great relationship, and they happen to be an amazing organization. But from the franchisor perspective, whether it's considering a franchise sales organization or other steps you've taken, what's the advice, Bryan? Because there's so many new franchisors out there that they don't gain traction, they don't grow. Sometimes they feel like they get misdirected. What's some advice you give to the new franchisors out there?
You know, I think our story is a little different and a little unique, and it's in that uniqueness that I got to skip some of these steps. But then in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, that's kind of what we did. So my first piece of advice would be, you know, we and when I say we, it's really just me. It was me. So I didn't want to franchise too early. I didn't even want to franchise. I just wanted to feed my family. And so I was running a flooring company in Denver, and I built this model in Denver selfishly for me so that I could run a successful, profitable business. And I spent 10 years figuring it all out and getting good at it and learning it. And I mean, from the point of like, I was scraping corners and sweeping floors, which is like the lowest level of our entire trade, all the way through. I did it all. It's like flipping burgers. I did it all. And it wasn't until years into the process that I'm like, wow, we actually have this model that could be franchised. And even then, I still waited a few more years to let it, and I've always used the word percolate, just kind of like coalesce and come together and work out the kinks. And there's still this part that's kind of ugly. And I was constantly thinking about, what are my conversations going to look like when I'm talking to strangers about coming into our Footprints family and starting to sell floors. It's like, yeah, this part's clunky. We need to fix this and make it look better and more. So it was just streamlining constantly. So then when we finally did launch out of state, we had answers for everything. Answers coming from a place of me having physically done it myself. I mean, I've done 12,000 estimates. And so for me to talk about how to sell in people's houses, and I say, hey guys, I've done 12,000 estimates. You should do it this way. They go, yeah, sounds good. You've done 12,000. We believe you, versus I read a book once that said this is how you're supposed to do sales, and you should believe me. You lose credibility when you haven't walked the walk for years. So I think a lot of franchisors probably get in a little too quick and a little too early without having vetted all of their systems and made the house account profitable and succinct and workable. But if you can get to that point and it's profitable, then you move into convincing other people, because you're convincing them to give up their time and their money and their livelihood and trust you. And I hold that's an extremely hard ask for me. And I want to make sure that I'm taking that relationship so seriously, because if I were in their shoes, I would expect the same towards me. So, yeah, knowing your crap. How's that?
No, but what's genuine about what you described, and there's two parts: franchisee, which we'll get to, but for the franchisors out there, I mean, you were a reluctant franchisor, and you franchise for all the right reasons, which is growth and supporting customers, and so you built out organically, and you seasoned your franchise network. You focused on what was important. But the other part, I think, for the franchisors, or that you're focused on what is the obligation of franchisees. I mean, without getting too personal, we were at a mastermind group conference together about a year ago in Denver, and in our conference today, when we were speaking, it was about summers and family, and I know your faith is so critical, which it should be, right? So when I look at business, what I love about entrepreneurship, I'm like, there's always something behind it. People could say it's about money, but it's not. I mean, it's there. That's a marker. It's about empowering lives. It's about achieving things in life. And when I say achieving, it's those moments with family. But how do you interconnect? Because I think it's critical. And I think your faith, the mission of Footprints Floors, and how you approach franchisees when they come to you at a very vulnerable state, which is, hey, for whatever reason, I have a pain point in my life and I'm thinking of making a shift, and Footprints, is this right for me or not? Like, how do you connect all those things together?
And I love these guys. Sorry. So
Oh,
to really approach relationships, and they're strangers, right? I don't know them, but um, as a follower of Christ, that's what we're called to. And so to sorry,
no,
enter into to enter into these relationships with these strangers and really and care for them and care for their well-being, and get to know them and get to know their spouses and children and hopes and dreams, and those hopes and dreams, they become my hopes and dreams. And our staff, I have what's called an executive staff of 7 people, and we have another 65 people on staff overall, and we all come from very similar backgrounds, and we have very similar alignment on what we care about. And so to see other success, and to rejoice when others rejoice, um, and to mourn, or to when others mourn. And we've had a franchisee die, we've had spouses die, we've had a few cancer scares, we've had a couple heart attacks, and these are huge life events that a lot of people are experiencing for the first time themselves as well. We've had divorces, and so for us to come alongside these franchisees and support them both, financially with help, but beyond that, just spiritually and emotionally, and really be there for them. And I talk about it often with our franchisees, that it absolutely, it tears me up to see them struggle. I don't know why this is emotional for
no,
me.
because
Um,
Brian, it is.
so I take it very seriously, and I want their success worse than I want my own success, and that really
Man,
permeates.
it's funny. It's not funny, but like I get it. Like, when even here at our firm, when we go through our traction and our quarterly rocks, and if we're not going to hit a metric, it's not about the dollars. I don't want to let our team down, right? And you have that times, many franchisees and your corporate team. What is it like when you guys have your conference? Like, what
Oh,
does it feel like when what, share some of that.
Yeah, I love our conferences. It's the one time a year we get together. It's like it's seeing old friends. It really is. It's getting together. It's like, how's it been? It's hugs and high fives and beers and cigars, and but it's classes, it's educating, and it's all the business side of it too. But really, it's about relationships, and it's just being involved in these lives more and more. And I see these as relationships that hopefully last decades. And I approach each one that way, knowing that hopefully they're around, and I want to be around for them too. And there's so much there's so much I can like knowledge just to pass along and help, because I've been there. We talk about it in terms of paths. Every single one of us is walking down the exact same path, and I just happen to be on the same path, but 20 years down the road, and I run into lots of obstacles, and I figured out how to overcome them. Let me share that information back down the path, and so they don't have the same struggles, and maybe they can walk down the path a little faster than I did. But we see that as our responsibility. And then we talk about in terms of path, all of our staff, like just walking alongside the path next to them, making sure they stay on the path, which is like on the model and not getting lost in the weeds somewhere, but really just there to help them along the way. Like, can we carry your pack for you? Can we, let's just keep walking this way. You're doing great. Keep it up. You're almost to the top of the hill. And just be that for them the whole time. That's what we see our responsibility as.
And you have a great team, your internal team. I mean, today we were talking about, and we're having our own planning conversation. Part of it is talking about technology, technology stack, and you were talking about how to do it in a fair way of, hey, Charles, these are things I want to implement and are core, but let's make these other things optional and let the franchisees make some good decisions here. We're talking about, the branding and the marketing. And I mean, aside from the fact that Footprints now is a leader in the industry, I mean, if someone's evaluating whether it's this industry or another home service-based industry, what would be the three factors where, okay, these are the three important reasons why you should be considering Footprints?
Flooring's amazing. No, I'm just kidding. That's never flooring's the least sexy thing ever. I do love flooring, but that's maybe not one of our three. I think it's a fantastic work-life balance. It's being home and present. We're generally done at 5:00. We're not working weekends. We're not traveling all that much, right? There's one convention a year. That's the only travel for this entire thing. And so I love bringing franchisees in that have been traveling for 2 or 3 weeks a month for years, and they switch over to this. They're like, oh my gosh, I know my kids now. And so that's always fun to see them like start to pour into their families, because that's such a crucial part of who we are, just a crucial part of overall health. But so family, and then the second would be they can make really good money. Nobody ever thinks about the flooring industry or the trades in general, because they don't have the most prestigious position in our culture. But there's a lot of money to be made in the trades because there's such a huge need. And so people are willing to pay for it. And the trades aren't going anywhere. We're not getting replaced by AI anytime soon, because somebody needs to physically go do the work. And then somebody needs to manage those people going to do the work. And that's where we come in. So good money and a great opportunity. And then last, I think we're fantastic at supporting our franchisees. We have so much information, so many opportunities, so many people to talk to, industry experts, videos, trainings, convention, you name it. There's so much. We use the word internally, smother, often. We want to smother our franchisees with support, and smother has a negative connotation, but I like it on purpose, because smother, in my mind, I'm thinking of when I have a little brother that's 7 years younger than me, and I used to smother him too, right, with wrestling. But you get to a point where he cries uncle, like, okay, enough. Like, okay, I took it too far with my wrestling. But smothering our franchisees, and it's the same thing we do with our flooring customers, we smother them with communication. We want to push and push on support until they say, hey, enough. Like, uncle, I'm good. You can stop calling me. It's like, okay, great. Because now we know where you want us to be, and then we'll back off a step. Because every single franchisee, like every customer, has a certain subjective, varying range of communication that they want and support. And for us to figure that out, we need to smother and then back off. And so There's some franchisees that never want to talk to us. They got it. They're doing their thing. That's great. And there's some that want to talk to us 7 times a day, and we're uniquely set up to accommodate both different kinds of personalities and needs, and that's what Smother means to me.
Yeah, and I think you're being modest too. I mean, franchise buyers, you know, anyone watching this, culture is so big, leadership team is so big. Like aligning yourself with a company that's culture and mission aligns with yours, and a leadership team you could trust and grow with. I mean, outside looking in, Brian, I think that's one of your most amazing assets. So I appreciate the time.
Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
Good looks, huh? Hardly. That was a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
That well, that would be like me saying I'm good looking. No, but
Hey, now.
I appreciate the time, Brian. I really do. It's a lot of fun stuff ahead.
Good deal. Thanks, Charles.